people move on with their lives, and sometimes they're able to hold on to friendships, sometimes they can't. My life revolves around my health and my dog. Their life might revolve around their family, their children, their work. And if we were to meet up and catch up, I'd be listing off bones I've broken and scans I've had and operations I had. They'd be listing off career achievements and children and weddings and stuff like that. It's a very different world that they live in than I live in now.
Emma, thank you so much for joining us on Gript Media today. Can you tell us a little bit about Barky and how much he means to you?
He means an awful lot to me. We got him about 10 days after my mum died, and that was just as the lockdowns and stuff were kicking in 2020. So he was a big comfort to myself during that, because I can't get out as well. He kept me company and he got me through it, and all my surgeries and stuff like that as well.
Can you tell us a little bit about your specific condition?
I have numerous conditions. The main ones is a genetic condition called osteogenesis imperfecta. I have type 1, and it's a brittle bone disease that was traced back about 500 years in my family, that according to records that can be got. And it is basically a collagen disorder, so it affects a lot more than just bones, and because of that I have developed osteoporosis in my spine as well. I also have fibromyalgia, degenerative osteoarthritis, chronic pain, chronic fatigue, chronic migraines, and I'm being investigated for a new number of different ailments at the moment as well. So.
And how do you find kind of accessibility in Ireland as somebody with kind of special needs? And
my needs are changing a lot in recent months, so I can't really speak on that just yet. I have started using a rollator since Christmas, and I find if anywhere has steps, it's awkward. Obviously you can't use a rollator going up steps, but I am becoming more aware of things like that for people with disabilities in Ireland. If there isn't an accessible ramp, or the ramp goes off in a lot of different directions before it eventually gets to where the top of 4 steps would get you, it is a lot for someone who has difficulty walking.
And how do you find handling Barky while you're going about your daily business?
I can't alone. He does have a walker, Paul, or Papa Paul, who takes him out with a few of his friends twice a week for me, and we go and visit relatives and he gets to run around the gardens, but I can't bring him out myself anymore. When we first got him, I could do short walks, but at the time there was a lot of thefts of dogs, especially on single women with puppies, and he was a puppy at the time. It was just the start of the pandemic, and in the area vans were driving up alongside single women with puppies and jumping out and cutting the leads and nicking the dogs. I can't run. I couldn't run then. I can't use my right shoulder. I'm right-handed. I can't hit or pull or defend myself. I wouldn't be able to defend him. I'd end up with a lot of broken bones. He'd be gone. So I wouldn't go out by myself even when I could.
Viewers might be interested to know that you actually played a huge part in helping the late Donal Rogers and his dog Kim. Can you tell us a little bit about the role you played setting up the GoFundMe that helped him settle the case?
Well, I first read about it. I was actually waiting to fall asleep. I'd taken my medication for the night, and I read the article that you actually published, and I was furious. I went and signed a petition straight away. I shared it left, right and centre, and I spent all night doing that. I didn't sleep. The medication never kicked in because I was so angry and annoyed. I actually spent the next day hunting down Assumpta Curran, or Assumpta Gaffney, who set up the petition, and we got in contact with her, and I ended up basically running the campaign with help from her and a number of other people behind the scenes. I set up the group and the GoFundMe, and we kept on top of things. We found out what he needed. We corresponded with the solicitor and the barrister and Donal, obviously, and we found out what he needed, and I relayed it to the group, and I let everyone know what we had bought for him and brought it to him. And he had a friend, Mr. Coughlin, who was there with him as well, who helped him a lot too. So I couldn't not do anything. And because I don't go out, I don't work because of my health, I had the time to put towards it. So it made sense.
And what are some of the things you were able to put in place?
Well, we got the fencing and the gates. Unfortunately, they weren't finished until after he passed. He got a brand new phone. He got the Wi-Fi. He got a tracker and a new collar and lead and a new tag for Kim, which was one of the stipulations that the judge wanted for her to be on a lead and to have a tag. He got training. A very nice lady called Anne Jordan came forward to help with that, and a nice lady in Britain came forward called Pat Clark. She came over to do an assessment of Kim off her own back, and met up with Anne to come up with a plan for Kim and Donal for their training and what they could do. So a lot was done. Just unfortunately didn't get to reap the full benefit of it all for long.
And what was the reaction like in the group? The kind of, I think you called yourselves Kim's Army, is
Yes.
that correct? What was the reaction like when you received the unfortunate news that Donal had passed away last Christmas?
Everyone was gutted. I found out on Christmas Day, but of course, to allow for the family time to be informed wherever they were. I know there was someone in Denmark, so to allow for everyone to have time to be informed and kind of come together themselves, we didn't let anyone know until St. Stephen's Day, and it was hard not to let anyone know because I had just sent a text message a few minutes before I got the message that he had passed. I'd sent him a message from the group wishing him a happy Christmas because the group had asked me to, and there was messages coming in asking had he replied, had he said anything, and I couldn't say anything. So I kind of just stayed quiet for those few hours, and the next day when the news broke, everyone was devastated. There was people crying, wanting to know what they could do. There was a very almost knee-jerk reaction, asking to raise funds for flowers and stuff like that, which was very nice. But we didn't know what the arrangements were. We didn't know if flowers were requested or asked not to be. So we kind of calmed everyone down and said, what we'll do is we'll wait to find out what the situation is. But we actually raised money for some dogs to be rescued. There was another lady in Scotland called Donna. She was donating food for Kim and had pledged to do so for the rest of her life. And instead, when Donal passed, what she said she would do is she rescued a dog from Romania, and she called him Donal. He should be arriving any day now. And she said if we raised enough funds, she would rescue another dog, a girl, and call her Roscoe, in honour of kind of Roscommon, where Donal's from. And she is ultimately hoping to rehome them over here. And as a part of the adoption agreement, she will be stipulating that they must keep the name Donal and Roscoe. So hopefully they'll be arriving soon, and she'll be making a post, and we'll be sharing it to the group.
Off camera, you told me a little bit about invisible disabilities. Can you talk to us about what those are like?
People don't understand, and they often don't believe that you're ill or you have a disability. I mean, when I break a bone, it's very obvious. I've got a cast on. But when I'm in pain, people can't see my pain. They can't see what's going on inside my body. So because they can't visualize something, they find it hard to believe, which is understandable. When I was younger, before I developed these things, I felt that way when I was seeing my mother get sick and say she was in pain and not understanding why she couldn't just walk this little bit farther and why she had to stop right then and there. So I get that from both sides now. But when people see you in a wheelchair or they see you with a walking aid, they can see, right, that person has something wrong. But even 2-3 years ago, when I could walk unaided and I would suddenly well, not suddenly, when I would start feeling my pain get too much, I would start to voice, I need to take a break. People would not understand. They would look at me as like, why? You're fine. There's nothing wrong with you, because they can't see it. So it is difficult for people with invisible disabilities, within family, within friendships. It's not it doesn't separate with your family, like they all automatically believe you. My spine is very bad. My doctor, when I would go to him saying, my pain is not being controlled by the medication you're giving me, I would see him kind of look at me, and it's almost like he was wearing one of those lights, the signs that go across your head, saying, are you drug seeking? Are you really in pain? And I wasn't. I wouldn't do that. I watched my mother having to survive on pain medication. I didn't want that for myself. I don't want to end up at a point where I have reached the top tier of pain medication and it stopped working. So he sent me for an MRI on my spine. And when he got it back, he got the report. Apparently at some point in my life I had fractured 2 vertebrae. They are rubbing off my spinal cord, exactly where I was telling him where the pain is. And he couldn't stop himself from blurting out, you really are in pain. And I'm kind of going, yeah. But it was like I was vindicated. There's now physical proof I'm in pain. You might not be able to see it on the outside, but I can access my MRIs. I can show you there is where the pain is.
How does chronic pain affect your friendships?
I feel I've lost a great number of very important friendships. On both sides. Because I would be having pain and needing to take breaks, I mightn't get invited out as often, or if I was planning something, they mightn't want to join in, or if I knew that if I have to walk X amount of miles, I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm going to end up in pain and hanging out of someone's arm to get back. So I wouldn't go. So it played on both sides. But there's also the fact my pain started when I was around 18, 19. It didn't really kick in until the last decade, but it was starting from broken bones, ankles and dislocations and stuff like that. So walking, I might say, I need to stop. And they'd kind of look at me like, you're 18, there's nothing wrong with you. You can keep going. And it's like, I can't. And 18-year-olds don't understand unless there's something screamingly obvious at them. And I don't begrudge them. And it's one of those things that's carried on through the years. And it's okay. People move on with their lives, and sometimes they're able to hold on to friendships, sometimes they can't. My life revolves around my health and my dog. Their life might revolve around their family, their children, their work. And if we were to meet up and catch up, I'd be listing off bones I've broken and scans I've had and operations I had. They'd be listing off career achievements and children and weddings and stuff like that. It's a very different world that they live in than I live in now. So it's okay. I have a lot of online friends, and I have a few friends that have only met me when I'm the way I am now, so they don't know me or never knew me when I could do a lot more. So they have no frame of reference like people I went to school with might. So they kind of know, right, this person has pain. we can do this much walking and they have to stop, or I need to listen to them, because I've seen her end up being hauled off to hospital, or I've seen her fall at work and turn up the next day in a moon boot because she's broken her foot. It's kind of things like that. So it just depends. You make new friendships as you go along. Friendship is one of those things that's ever changing. So for me to kind of say it's entirely down to my health is not fair, or it's entirely down to other people not understanding is not fair. It happens. I moved countries twice. You drift apart. It's a natural part of life. Would I like to still be in touch with them? Of course I would. It's kind of, you have all these memories of these times with these people, and they're good memories, and you'd like to build more, but everyone is in a different stage in their lives now. You're not at the same point in school, all doing your exams, or whatnot. Life moves on, you move on, they move on. It just is.
And Emma, you mentioned to me that unfortunately your mom passed away in 2020.
Yeah.
How does your dad help you every day? He seems like he's a big part of your life in terms of...
Yeah, he is. We both helped look after Mum. She had been ill for a long time, and where we now live was a big part of my health and her health. We got a house that was 3 stories and had been converted into flats. So I had to have my own space and my own independence in that regard. But if I fall or break a bone or need help, someone is there. Or if my mum needed help and Dad had to go out, I was there. But he had become, or has become, a big part in helping me with preparing meals and washing my hair for the last 5 years, because my right shoulder essentially imploded in my sleep the day before I was due to have surgery on my fingers, and I had to be brought into hospital for emergency surgery, and my shoulder doesn't work anymore, so I can't wash my own hair. So he helps me with that. I find preparing meals difficult. If I have to lift a pot or pour the kettle, I can't, because I'm right-handed, it's my right shoulder. He also helps me get to places because, again, I can't drive. Getting the bus isn't an option for me anymore because there's no suspension. It kills my back. And depending on where the bus lets you off and how far you have to walk is something that I had to take into consideration as well. And in the last year or so, my health has had another major decline since I broke my ankle last May. So he's become an even bigger help for me.